The questioner is asking, and I'll give it to you afterwards as well, just to confirm, but I think I've picked up what the question is asking. Is asking what your opinion is about the Sahaba, mentions Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman. If your belief is that they are munafiq, hypocrites, then how is it that Allah relied on the help of these particular hypocrites? If, however, your opinion is that they are believers, then how is it possible that these believers went and disobeyed the command of Allah, particularly the command with regards to imamah? This is from a Sunni brother or sister, especially imamah and the statement that was made at Ghadir.
MashaAllah, you speak Arabic, Brother Abdul Rauf? I didn't know that. That's excellent. Ahsant. With regards to the companions of the Prophet, I think I mentioned this in one of the lectures during the 10 days of Muharram. Being a companion of someone proves nothing. Well, it does prove that you happen to be there at the right place and the right time, but that is not a reflection of your character in any way, shape, or form. Being married to someone, again, is not a reflection of your character. People marry for all kinds of reasons. Yes, one of them's love, but there's a whole host of other reasons. In fact, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the story of the Prophet Lut and the predicament he was in with his people, the people of Sodom. And the Quran quotes Prophet Lut, who's an infallible messenger of God, as offering his daughters to the people of Lut, to the people of Sodom, to prevent them from committing the sins that they were engaged in. Now, clearly, that marriage, if it took place, right, and even if it didn't take place, it's irrelevant. The mere fact that the Prophet is offering his daughters to these men is not a reflection of their character, is it? So, regarding the companions of the Prophet, I think it's important that we recognize that they included the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nobody in their right mind, no one who is objective and who is realistic in his view, will tell you that every single person who saw the Prophet is automatically labeled as moral and virtuous and good and righteous. So even though that title has been awarded to them by the Sunni school of thought, they are labeled as righteous companions, but we know, not just by virtue of the fact that any society includes the good and the bad, but also by virtue of the Quran, which sent an entire chapter called Al-Munafiqun, the hypocrites. So, first conclusion to draw from this is that the companions of the Prophet included people who were hypocrites, right? And so knowing that allows us to think more objectively, to recognize that they were not infallible, and to pave the way for us to be able to look at them critically, to critique their behaviors, their statements, and not take everything that they give us as the gospel truth. Once we're able to cross over that hurdle, it becomes a lot easier to digest the second part of this answer, right? So with regards to the individuals named in the question, we have reservations against them. We have some very strong reservations against them. Let's just put it that way. And the reservations include the fact that we believe, and I'm being very open and honest about this, we believe that the first successor to the Prophet should have been Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Right? Allahumma salli ala Imam Ali should have been the first Khalifa. Now, since he's not, clearly, he wasn't the first Khalifa, then that draws a gigantic question mark over the one who did become the first Khalifa, as well as the one appointed by the first Khalifa to be the second Khalifa, as well as the one who was led to become the third Khalifa, again by the second Khalifa. It makes us question the integrity of the process. It makes us once again, it highlights those reservations that we have against them. Now, beyond the labels, beyond whether I'm going to label someone a hypocrite or a believer, I think the most important question here, instead of just putting a label on them, is to analyze their deeds, is to analyze their behaviors, is to analyze what they did and what they said. If you look at the Quran, you'll see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in many occasions, is very critical of the behavior of these so-called companions. I mean, the verse commonly cited in an attempt to highlight the proximity or the closeness of the first Khalifa to Rasulullah, the incident of the cave, is in fact, if you read the verse, again, with objectivity, is very, very critical of the first Khalifa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for instance, sidesteps having to mention his name in the verse. I mean, there were two people in the cave, for crying out loud. One of them we know is Rasulullah. Who's the second one? Why doesn't the Quran? I mean, this is in response to those people who tell us, well, if Imam Ali was supposed to be the first Khalifa and the first Imam, then why doesn't the Quran just mention his name? And, get it over with. Well, why doesn't the Quran mention the first Khalifa's name? I mean, here's this incident where he was only the second of a group of two people, and yet the Quran Allah deliberately avoids mentioning him by name, right? And again, if you analyze the verse, which I have I think 3 years ago when I was in Toronto in Canada, one of the lectures I gave was specifically about this verse and the critical way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about these particular companions. As for the part about in the question where it says that Allah used their help, or how did it go? How did God rely on their help in spreading the religion? Again, I think that's a very subjective assumption that you're making. Whether the religion was spread or use the contribution of those particular individuals is an assumption that you're drawing. No evidence is provided to support that. I've heard, for instance, that hey, the second Khalifa liberated Persia. And my response to that would be, well, where was the second Khalifa when he liberated Persia? The second Khalifa was in Medina. He didn't exactly liberate anything. He was in Medina. There were troops fighting who included Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein, and the first governor of Persia became Salman al-Farisi. So for all intents and purposes, Persia was and continues to be, for very good reasons, a very Shia achievement. And if I were to credit someone for that, I would credit Imam Ali and Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein and Salman al-Farisi and basically the partisans of Imam Ali, and not someone who's sitting somewhere in a safe environment while other people are sacrificing their lives. Hassan.